Mexican underworld's a famous place, and it's created the most feared and respected mafia bosses one can imagine, especially within the ill-famed Sinaloa cartel. Gonzalo Inzunza was no exception, with his cataclysmic nature making even the sound of his name enough to send shivers down your spine. However, it's that very same savagery that has made him so feared that ultimately led to his untimely end. Born August 17, 1971, Gonzalo Inzunza was a respected, high-ranking leader in the notorious Sinaloa cartel. His most famous aliases were El Macho Prieto, El Inzu, El MP, and El Once. Even before joining the cartel, Gonzalo was well-versed in illegal activities. His father had introduced him to the world of the drug trade early in his childhood, but before he could fully show him the ropes, he passed away when Gonzalo was still a teenager. Yet, his impact remained. Inzunza would find himself swept away into the criminal underworld and following in his father's footsteps. As a child, he attended grade and middle school at a religious institution named Colegio Sinaloa, and he kept to himself for most of his younger years. However, as he got older, his true colors started to show, and it seemed like a life of crime was calling his name. At the age of 19, Gonzalo committed his first homicide. During a party at his home, he got into an altercation with another man who laughed in his face. In response, he grabbed his gun and shot the man, taking his life. Although this was the first, it certainly wouldn't be the last. This was only the start of a brutal and blood-stained legacy for Inzunza. He soon fled to the state of Sonora to lay low, where he began taking care of his father and diving into drug trafficking and organized crime. When Gonzalo resurfaced, he was living a much different life than before. With his sharp wits combined with the learned skills from his father, he was quick to establish a reputation as a trusted and competent member of the Sinaloa cartel. So much so that he was able to work directly under drug lord Ismael El Mayo Zambada as his assassin's chief, and the two conducted operations in Culiacan and other neighboring regions in Sinaloa. As assassin's chief, Gonzalo showed no remorse. His dedication to his role made him a ruthless and vicious killer, leading Mexican authorities to believe that he was the perpetrator of over 80 murders during his time in Sinaloa, with at least a dozen of those killings being police officers. With so much blood on his hands, he was already on the radar of the Mexican authorities, but he managed to slip through the cracks time and time again. When he couldn't seem to escape the situation, he would use scare tactics to intimidate law enforcement and guarantee his freedom. In the late 1990s, the Federal Ministerial Police sent 2 patrol cars to carry out an arrest warrant that had no affiliation with Inzunza. However, he sent his gunmen to stop the patrol cars, demanding to speak with a higher-up in the police force. When the commander arrived, Inzunza smacked him in the face, expressing that the police were not allowed to be there and that they were never to return. He then ordered them to leave and confiscated their weapons. Stunned, the policemen complied. It was an obvious power play and a clear display of his dominance, but it worked in his favor. That was the first of many similar incidents. Inzunza was a feared drug lord with zero tolerance for wandering eyes or strangers in his territory. He intimidated countless officers into turning around whenever they ventured too close for comfort. On May 5, 2005, Inzunza was traveling to Mazatlan to visit a rehabilitation center. He'd been struggling with a severe drug addiction and was hoping to seek treatment. However, on the way there, he and his men were intercepted by the Mazatlan Municipal Police. They seized multiple assault rifles, grenade launchers, handguns, and grenades in the process. A photojournalist confirmed Inzunza's presence at the arrest, but when it came to transporting to the prison, the drug lord was nowhere to be found. Although unconfirmed, it was rumored that he bribed the officers into letting him go. Whether it be with his silver tongue or his sheer ferocity, he was able to escape police custody with nothing but his words and no weapons. In 2008, the Sinaloa cartel was suffering from severe infighting, with tensions rising both internally and externally. The thirst for power from several key players in the organization was apparent, not to mention issues arising with the Beltran Leyva cartel. The two groups were engaged in constant conflict, which usually led to bloodshed. Talks of betrayal, working with police, and anonymous tip-offs were circulating, and the cartels constantly accused each other of being the reason behind their pitfalls. Inzunza became heavily involved in these conflicts when reports surfaced that he was likely the killer of El Chapo's son, whom he had attacked after confusing him for a rival cartel member. This caused a rift in the relationship with El Mayo, who refused to offer him protection due to his supposed betrayal. The Sinaloa cartel soon transferred him to the regions of Baja California and Sonora, where he operated primarily out of Mexicali. There, he oversaw and coordinated drug trafficking activities, expanding operations into areas like Caborca, Sonoita, San Luis Rio Colorado, and Nogales. At his peak, he was also able to reach Jalisco, Quintana, Ru, Chiapas, Nayarit, and Sinaloa. This substantial growth wasn't the result of only Inzunza's hard work, but rather a joint effort between him and his brother, who went by the alias El Peque. The two facilitated the transport of large quantities of product through South America. They established 3 major smuggling routes in Venezuela, Chiapas, and Sinaloa that expanded into countries like the United States, Honduras, and Costa Rica, which further propelled them into almost unparalleled success in the drug trade. Outside of his drug trafficking operations, Gonzalo protected his roots and fellow Sinaloa members from rival cartels in Sonora. Their main enemy, the Beltran-Leyva cartel, was rebuilding and once again establishing itself as a top cartel. Inzunza kept a close eye on their movements to ensure that they were not interfering with the Sinaloa cartel in their operations, no matter what. And whenever opportunity struck, he and his men were quick to attack. He surprised many when he fled to a safe house in Baja California in early 2011. It was suspected that this was because Manuel Torres Felix, a high-ranking member of the Sinaloa cartel, wanted him dead for the murder of his associate, Paulo Osorio Payan. With a target on his back, Gonzalo knew his best course of action was to hide. However, that didn't mean he wasn't still issuing orders and handling business. In October 2012, Manuel Torres Felix died at the hands of the Mexican army, which prompted Inzunza's return to Mexicali. However, his time there was short-lived. Los Garibay, a group led by a former Sinaloa cartel member that teamed up with the Jalisco New Generation cartel, went on a killing spree in Mexicali and the neighboring areas. Inzunza and his men joined the fight, but it wasn't long before they left Mexicali completely. On June 1, 2011, Gonzalo Inzunza was placed on the most wanted drug traffickers list, as dictated by the Foreign Narcotics Kingpin Designation Act. The list contained 122 of Mexico's most wanted and high-profile criminals. The U.S. government published this act to prohibit U.S. citizens from conducting business with wanted drug lords and froze any assets that were in association with the drug trade. A bounty of 3 million Mexican pesos, or $230,000, was offered to anyone who could provide information leading to his arrest. At the time of this list, Inzunza already had 3 arrest warrants in Mexico, along with a provisional detention request with extradition purposes issued by the United States government for his involvement in the illegal drug trade. On December 18, 2013, news broke out that shocked all of Mexico. At 4 a.m. that day, El Macho Prieto was confirmed dead. His death was a result of an intense shootout with the Mexican Marines in Prieto, Sonora, which left 5 dead and 3 vehicles completely incinerated. Mexican authorities had been investigating a reported homicide, chasing a white Chevrolet pickup truck. When they approached, the vehicle occupants opened fire, leading to a shootout at the Bella Serena Via that lasted a reported 4 hours, with non-stop gunfire and Black Hawk helicopters at the scene. The identity of the corpse was confirmed to be Inzunza on December 19, 2013. A federal agent investigating the drug lord said he had been hiding for 15 days prior to the incident, and that he was at the Via to keep a low profile. Although unconfirmed, investigators have reason to believe that the anonymous tip-off of Inzunza's whereabouts may have been from the top leaders of the Sinaloa cartel themselves. His rash actions and tenacity for violence had taken Macho Prieto out of the good graces of many of the higher-ups. Many believe that his disobedience and blatant disregard for authority may have been the reason behind his downfall, with his own cartel likely being the cause of his death. It shows that the knife in your back could be from anyone, even those who are supposed to be on your side. As always, thank you for watching Max Corrupt. If you'd like to know more about the criminal underworld and the ins and outs of cartels, be sure to subscribe.